On today's show, the Bucks needed to respond, and they did respond, but they did have to do it without Giannis. We saw some different offense early in this game. Splash Mountain was featured, and then the threes came. We've been asking about this. Can the Bucks knock down shots? Hopefully, they didn't just knock them all down in one game, though. But we've got plenty to talk about. The series is tied at 1-1. The Bucks beat the Heat in Game 2.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday and on the weekends for post-game shows, and also find my work over at ESPN. Alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. And don't forget, we're only 2 games down in this series. Game 3 coming up on the weekend. The Bucks will now have to travel to Miami, and you can catch every minute of the Bucks during the postseason on the hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search for Bucks, and they'll have you sorted there. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or first listen of every single day. And I imagine there was some anxiety amongst the Bucks fans, or I know there was because I was reading the YouTube comments. Hopefully over the next 2 nights at least, you can sleep a little bit better. We'll continue to wait on Giannis, but we appreciate the support. Make sure you drop a like, drop a comment. Let us know what you thought about tonight's game. Subscribe, follow, all those things. We're continuing to grow the show. It's free to do so, and we appreciate all the support of everyone. Now, Frank, apologies to you, but I'm back. You got to do both podcasts with me again. You did a sterling job with Justin. I was traveling. I was in the car. I listened to the podcast. It wasn't the show I wanted to listen to, but it was great nonetheless. But now, the Bucks just had to respond. No Giannis. I had a bit of anxiety before this game once Giannis was ruled out, waiting to see how this team would respond. Take it wherever you want to take it. But they had to find a way to get Brook Lopez involved in the offense. You spoke about it in the post game, and that's clearly what they did from the first minute of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were like 3 plays that really stand out to me from this game, and kind of the play calls at specific times and what they said about the overall sort of tenor and flow of this game. And you hit it. First possession, ball gets worked around. Bobby Portis caught a pass at the top of the key that 29 times out of 30 Bobby Portis is shooting that catch and shoot 3-pointer. Did not seem interested at all in that. Instead, immediately looks down to get the ball to Brook Lopez. Brook using the mismatch size against, I think it was Strus on that play, and scores to get the Bucks off to a good start. Kind of similarly, third quarter, Bucks come out pretty flat from halftime. I think the Heat, they scored the first 7 points or so of the third quarter, and Bucks take a timeout. And what do? They start by trying to get the ball into Brook Lopez. Didn't work that time, but then Jrue Holiday, I think, gets it off like a loose ball or rebound, whatever it was, and hits a 3-pointer, kind of restores order, gets it back from 19 to 22, and from there it swelled back over 30 before the Bucks again made it a little bit annoying in the late fourth. I don't think it was ever like really too nerve inducing, too got too anxious, but it was definitely a Brook Lopez night. And I thought that was one of the themes obviously that Justin and I talked about after game 1 was, wait a minute, where's Brook Lopez? Why is he only taking 4 2-point shots? You got to make better use of Brook, especially losing Giannis early in the game. Brook just seemed like such an underutilized asset in that first game. And tonight we saw them really try to work the ball over to him, and kind of shades of game 5 against Atlanta for me. Game where Giannis leaves the prior game midway through it. You lose that game, kind of deflating. But then the team has, a couple days to kind of reset and come into a game knowing that they're going to play without Giannis, which is obviously a scenario that they had to do, a fair number of times during the regular season. 19 times during the regular season. They won 11 of those. And so, I don't know. The psychology is so interesting, right? In the playoffs, higher seed loses the first game, and it's just remarkable how many times in the second game they bounce back and do it in a major way. And granted, they don't often hit 25 3-pointers because teams don't do that in the playoffs. What did that tie the NBA record for playoff 3-pointers? Bucks just can't be. My friends Connor and Bill here in Austin, we watched the game together on Sunday, suffered through it. We're texting, and I can't remember if it was Connor or Bill said Bucks just can't have a normal 3-point shooting game, right? Like it's just always always got to be the extremes. It feels like sometimes, but the 3-point shooting was obviously tremendous. They just came out, didn't come out like running away from the opening tip, but looked calm, confident, had a game plan, exploit Brook's size, and also we talk about mismatches. There's nobody that can really guard Jrue Holiday 1v1 on this Heat team. Jrue's a physical mismatch against pretty much everybody, but against this team, I think we saw it tonight. He really, I thought, tried to exert his will getting to the basket. And, we've talked about sort of the inconsistency of Jrue's scoring in the playoffs. Obviously, tonight was one of those games where you feel really good about his scoring. He scores 24 points on 10 out of 19. Another 11 assist a game. So, his playmaking, I think, has been on point, plus 28 in only 32 minutes. So I thought Jrue obviously really responded well. But again, you could go up and down the lineup and pick guys that responded well. And I told you about picking plays. The third play I'd highlight, Bucks were up, I believe, 10. I think it was like 42-32 or so. And they had, I think that was at that point, they had like a 14-point lead at one point. After I think Chris hit a couple threes, I think that was at that point. And then Miami gets it to 10, and Miami's trying to bring the ball back up the floor. Chris kind of like dives at it, no pokes it away. Miami eventually kind of gets pressured. Eventually, Bam barely makes it across the midcourt before an 8-second violation, and Spo says, "All right, guys, let's sort of settle this down." Calls a timeout, and ironically, we normally talk about Spo calls a timeout and then resets his team and then they make a run or something like that, right? We saw that last game. Spo took timeouts. The Heat tended to make runs. In this game, coming out of that timeout, after that timeout, Pat Connaughton intercepts the pass, a pass around the perimeter. Coming out of that timeout, takes the other way. He had an awesome game tonight, gets a lay-in, and that kind of sparked this run that really is what kind of blew the game wide open. So again, just the psychology is fascinating. I think it speaks to the Bucks, the fact that most of these guys are NBA champions, that they were able to respond the way they did tonight, came out locked in. You wish you could do that in game ones, but certainly we'll take it in game two. A good performance, good response, and the fact that you were able to not need Giannis, when you win the game, then suddenly you feel good, like, oh, we didn't need to force Giannis to go out there. And I'm sure that, the Bucks' success, the fact that they've won playoff games without him, probably was part of the reason why they were willing to sit him out and kind of roll the dice a little bit, not risk him. And now he gets an extra couple days off. And again, the kind of spaced out schedule here in the first 3 games, obviously, hopefully it works out to the Bucks' favor, given the extra rest that we're going to be able to see Giannis get.
Yeah, Bud did say pre-game in regards to Giannis that there was nothing precautionary about this and he legitimately wasn't good to go. I think it is at least noteworthy that Giannis didn't come out for warm-ups pre-game, because we've seen him do that before. And typically if he gets out there, there's been the odd occasion where he hasn't played. But for the most part, if you see him out there, he's good to go. So he's clearly dealing with stuff. Although he did look like he was having fun on the bench tonight, which was good to see.
Yeah. Weren't you like kind of surprised that he's just like sitting on the bench and
a little?
I was just like, oh, like, is he going to be like laying down in a dark room somewhere, or doing the Robin Lopez on the sideline or something? But no, thankfully he had a lot of reasons to get up and cheer and yell and hoot and hollers. But yeah, again, fingers crossed that he rapidly heals between now and Saturday. And I'm going to say that as I would like to see a healthy Giannis on the floor sooner rather than later. But a good reminder of what the Bucks can do without him. If the Bucks have to play another 1 or 2 games without him, I'm going to feel a bit anxious about that. But at a minimum, you averted the disaster scenario of going down 0-2.
Yeah, keep that back loose by getting up and sitting down and getting up all night long. That's all he was doing too. He was doing rehab on the fly. And you briefly mentioned Chris Middleton there, and he did hit those 2 consecutive threes. And it's like, okay, I thought he was happy to facilitate in this game. We can get into that more. But that's the added bonus here. You get a really kind of subdued Chris Middleton just in the background type of game. He only plays 28 minutes, and you didn't need it because you were able to get scoring and offense from other sources, which was nice. One final thing on the 3-point shooting, we'll probably come back to it throughout, but you attempt 49 threes, and if you wanted a number to show the evolution of how the Bucks have done different things offensively, out of those 49 3-point attempts and 25 makes, Brook Lopez 0 for 1, 12 for 16 on 2s in this game. So awesome the way he's been able to take over games, particularly when Giannis hasn't been out there, because it is a big point of difference for this team. There's plenty more to get to. You briefly mentioned Pat here. Probably his best, well, not probably, it was his best game for the season. Joe Ingles was outstanding and talking. And you know what else? Bobby Portis was playing on the edge in this game. So we'll get to that and a bit more after I talk about eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know if the part will fit your car or you get your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts and the right fit and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. We do thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every single day. That's the Locked On Podcast Network right there. But we're celebrating the everydayers that are back with us every single day, Frank. So if you're an everydayer, tomorrow we're going to look to the road, and the Bucks obviously now take the series down to Miami. So make sure you check out Locked On Bucks tomorrow. So Bobby Portis, you mentioned the first possession of the game where he didn't look to take that shot, but really throughout from a scoring perspective, he got some points later in the game, but I think he had 5 points at the half, but he was having a big impact in the game. And you spoke about the response, and I listened to how you described the defense, and there was just so many holes, and guys were getting easy catches for Miami. They were able to get to their spots. There was an intensity shift with this Bucks team, and Bobby Portis, I thought several times during this game, was on the fringe of getting ejected for picking up a second tech, or he was just talking to everyone. He was calling Kyle Lowry some non-family friendly names. He was getting in Bam Adebayo's face. He even blocked a big shot. He decked Kevin Love at some point, which I think was a little bit of a flop. But this was Bobby Portis at, I don't know whether it's at his best or it's a little bit dangerous the way he was playing because the Bucks really needed him on the floor. But I thought the way that he reacted and responded was emblematic of the Bucks' attitude shift and understanding that, hey, they had to take care of business tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby and Chris were really the two guys that, at least offensively, really showed out in game one. Less involved for Bobby. I think, there was a bit of a trade-off, probably looking more for Brook. And you mentioned Bobby himself was looking for Brook early in the game. So maybe some of those shots that otherwise would go to Bobby went to Brook. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, especially first half in particular, when Bobby was out there, they really looked to go at him, and for a couple of reasons. One, he was guarding Gabe Vincent to start the game, if I recall correctly, for the most part, because again, it's just kind of a funky Heat lineup. They don't really have a power forward, and so when the starters are out there, obviously Brook has to guard Bam, and then you have to figure out, okay, well, who are you putting Bobby on? Are you putting on Max Strus? Well, no. You putting him on, Jimmy Butler? No. And so you kind of work it around. You don't want him chasing Duncan Robinson off screen. So you pick Gabe Vincent just sort of by default because Vincent's the least likely guy to really get a lot of touches. And so they certainly tried to put, Bobby into actions. I think we saw some Vincent Bam pick and rolls where Bobby's going over screens, which is just I don't know. Like Marcus even mentioned it on the Fox Sports, the Bally Sports feed. Dropping with Bobby there, does that really make a lot of sense? I think they tried switching eventually a little bit. But, sort of those things, they hit a number of mid-range jumpers against Bobby, and they went at him. But, again, it's mid-range jumpers, you can kind of live with that, and I think ultimately, they definitely targeted him. They went after him. Maybe that was partly why he was feeling particularly sprightly and vocal. Not that Bobby needs an excuse to do that, but it was definitely an interesting night for him. But a couple blocks, a steal.
Yeah.
He's had a couple impressive blocks in the paint these last two games, which is not something that we typically expect from him. So not that we're looking at Bobby Portis as a new rim protecting solution for the Bucks or something like that. Yeah, I mean, they've obviously whenever Giannis doesn't play, you need Bobby Portis to be present and to at a minimum kind of hold his own, work defensively, and hopefully, punish the other team a bit on the offensive end. So 13, 15, 5 assists. I mean, 5 assists. How many times does Bobby Portis get 5 assists? I don't know. We have to check that. check that. But definitely a stat stuffing sheet. Only 9 field goals attempted for him. Did have 5 fouls. But yeah, Bobby. Fun night for the mayor. And I mean, just pretty remarkable. You just kind of go up and down the lineup. I mean, it was really a team effort. And even Grayson Allen hit shots, 16 points. But I thought Ingles and Connaughton in particular, I mean, were awesome in terms of the spark that those guys provided. Pat and Joe in particular, I mean, I think they both hit some threes in the first half. And then again, Joe was just sort of feeling it. He was 5 out of 6 from 3. Pat was 6 of 10. Obviously, they're not going to do that every game, but especially for Pat, I mean, I was excited for Pat. He's obviously been a guy that I've kind of believed in, and ever since the title run, he's a guy I trust. Obviously, this year the threes in particular weren't going down as well as they have in previous years at 34%. But I mean, that he can come in and maybe you don't expect him to put up 22 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, a block, 8 out of 12, 25 minutes. But he's capable of making shots and playing the right way. And I just thought, not just his 3-point shooting, but just a lot of really good drive and kick action tonight. It's part of the reason why they had so many threes. They had a lot of good looks because guys were, moving the ball, attacking off the dribble, forcing the Heat to rotate and moving the wall around. And, that's a pretty good recipe for getting good looks against a Heat team that obviously doesn't have a lot of size. And so they can't just, it's not like they've got Brook Lopez back there. Bam Adebayo is very good, but you can kind of move them around. You can put them into rotation, and we saw very good results for the Bucks tonight.
Yeah, 35 assists in this game on 53 made shots, and I mean, it's a pretty outrageous. I mean, I don't know how many times the Bucks have had 35 assists this season, but I would have. I mean, it would be a pretty low number. I mean, that's an extraordinary number there. And Jrue Holiday, 27 assists in 2 games in the postseason. Frank, he's dishing. Obviously tonight, we were absolutely happy to see him put some points on the board as well, and as you pointed to, really assert his physical nature in this game. I want to ask you about Jay Crowder though, and where he's out. So we're going to get to Jay Crowder next. And then perhaps a couple final little things to tie in this game. There is so much to talk to. And as you said, there are a lot of positives. But Jay Crowder is fascinating. So we'll get to him next. Thanks for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every day. For the everydayers, make sure you join us tomorrow. And you should subscribe because then you'll see when the show drops. I'll have someone with me. We'll be looking ahead to Game 3 and some of the bigger storylines. I'm sure we'll have some sort of update on Giannis and where he's at tomorrow as well. So make sure you join us tomorrow on Locked On Bucks. So Jay Crowder, no Wes Matthews tonight. I was with Camille yesterday. We discussed who's going to be the guy to come into the rotation. I think Pat was the obvious one. And we said, hey, this has been a guy the Bucks have relied on for 23, 25 minutes a night in the postseason in recent years. You got exactly 25 tonight. He was awesome, as you said. But we also wondered whether Jay Crowder was just going to see a bit of a bump up in minutes. 12 minutes in game 1. He only gets 15 tonight. 3 fouls in those 15 minutes, wasn't able to hit a shot, and none of his shots it's not like even his threes that he attempted were really good looks either. Just really not a factor. And then there's that flagrant foul where he kind of grabs the foot of Jimmy. Then he looked like he hurt himself as well. It hasn't been a great start for Jay, and he was one of the guys that were like, okay, well, we think he's going to play every night. He's going to take Wes minutes. He's going to take Joe minutes, but so far, not the best start. I'm not writing him off, but it's been slow so far.
Yeah, I mean, Justin and I talked about who are the winners, quote unquote winners of Giannis being out in terms of who gets minutes in his absence. Bobby Portis and Jay Crowder are the obvious guys. Bobby has stepped up and been an impact guy. Jay Crowder has been, MIA, right? It's not just Miami. It's Jay Crowder being missing in action here. I will say this: he wasn't as noticeably bad defensively tonight. I mean, game 1, he kind of looked like he could barely keep his feet under him when Jimmy Butler attacked him a couple times. Tonight, I didn't notice his defense as much, but certainly we have not seen from him the impact that you gave up 5 second round picks for, right? I mean, you're gonna probably need him in the series at some point. Hopefully Giannis comes back and mitigates some of that, but with Wes, it's like, seems like I love Wes, but with every few weeks, it seems like he gets some sort of random muscle injury and then misses like 2 weeks. So who knows when Wes is going to be able to go. So certainly getting Connaughton look back and looking fresh is really important, because also I think he's just size wise, kind of makes sense against a lot of Miami's wings. Again, he's not going to be a good matchup to like, go against Jimmy, which is where I think, again, you really would look at Jay and say, well, Jesus, man, like, you've been defending this guy for 13 years, starting in college, figure it out, man. Like, what's going on? He had a good finish to the season in many ways, right? Jay had some moments, especially because he was playing in some of those games where the rest of the team was resting, had that huge game in Washington. So it felt like, Jay Crowder was maybe coming around a little bit towards the end of the season, but he has just looked kind of just out of his depth here to start the playoffs. And, we've seen it. He's a very streaky player. I think the shooting almost is like, well, we know that comes and goes with him, and we've seen him make shots at points in the regular season, even after the trade. So yeah, pretty underwhelming so far from Jay Crowder. And, fortunately tonight you didn't need him because he had so many other guys contributing, but certainly, puts a lot of pressure on Ingles and Connaughton to perform at a high level, and it puts a lot of pressure on them to score, because obviously Joe in particular, obviously he's not going to, be juicing up the defense. He's not going to be taking Jimmy 1v1 or something like that. So, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe getting back to Miami, he's familiar with that area. Maybe that kind of flips the switch for him. Who knows? But he's a streaky guy, and I hope he's also a streaky defender. If and that what we've seen here the past couple of games is not indicative of what we're going to see moving forward. So, yeah, that's probably the big question mark at this point. The one obvious negative is Crowder's sort of continued struggles, but overall, mission accomplished, job done. Would have loved to have 2-0 going to Miami as you did a couple years ago, but you bought yourself another couple days for Giannis to heal up. Hopefully he's feeling good. I don't know if he's feeling great, but hopefully he'll be feeling good by the weekend. We'll see. And I don't know. Hopefully you won't need 25 threes next game to beat the Miami Heat. The defense, I don't know. The defense was great, but it was definitely better. And given some of the absences, starting with Giannis, obviously at this point, you're not looking to throw perfect games defensively in the playoffs. You're just trying to win. So still some work to be cleaned up. I don't know that they did anything like really dramatically different. I think I'd harken back to one of our mutual friend Seth Partnow's favorite sayings is, like, sometimes the best adjustment is just to play better. And I think that was pretty much a lot of the story tonight for the Bucks, right? They're not going to hit threes at the rate that they did tonight most nights, but I think game one, a lot of it was just kind of lack of sharpness after not playing. Definitely a lot of stuff they needed to clean up defensively. Transition game, by the way, was a huge flip tonight. Transition really worked against the Bucks in game one tonight. It really worked in their favor. It didn't feel like Jimmy Butler was, out on odd man breaks for most of the first half like it did in the previous game. So they cleaned that up, and no shocker, if you make a bunch of threes, the other team can't run on you very easily. So hopefully this is a turning point, but we'll see. Still got to win 3 more games, and again, biggest question still is just Giannis's health. Hopefully get him back on Saturday, and hopefully you don't have to go down one game again going into game 4.
Yeah, plenty of work still to go for the Bucks, but I saw some Bucks fans tweeting out or putting on social media, 2-zip, we'll still be fine. We've been there before. It would have been pretty desperate times with Giannis still a huge question mark. So you just feel really good about taking care of at least home court in game 2 and winning this game and going down there with a 1-1 split, and everyone probably feeling pretty good about themselves after tonight. As I mentioned, we'll have another podcast tomorrow, so make sure you check it out. Locked On Bucks, your team every day, and the everydayers will be with us tomorrow because they're subscribed and they'll get the notification as well there. So we'll have another show tomorrow. The Bucks win 138-122 tonight, which hopefully eases some anxiety for Bucks fans as we head towards the weekend and game 3. Of course, we will have a post-game show on the weekend as well. So make sure you go and check that out. Frank, go get on your work call. This is a man that works all through the night. This is a work ethic that has been rarely seen before among any human on planet Earth. So Frank, go do your work call. I'm going to get this podcast up.
It's not often I have to do work calls at 11 o'clock at night, but business works around the world, Kane. So I have some friends on the other side of the world I need to talk to about something a lot less
Me.
interesting than NBA basketball. Yeah, normally it's just you, but yeah, someone else who's not Kane, unfortunately. So anyway, we got a couple days to enjoy the rest of the week for Bucks fans.
Always nice after a win. We'll catch you all tomorrow.